Hi there, I'm Maria and welcome to my YouTube channel, The Creative Italian. Today I'm going to be sharing with you easy soldering tips when working with your thicker solder wire versus your thinner solder wire. But before I get started, if you like my videos and you want to be notified when I upload another video to my channel, just hit the subscribe button. And if you have any comments or questions about this video or any of my videos, please leave it in the comments. If there's anything that you would like to learn and you don't see it on my channel, if it relates to soldering jewelry or to crocheting or just in jewelry making in general, if I can answer those questions, I'll be more than happy to. And also, if you like this video, and this applies to my other videos, if you would give me a thumbs up, that would really help my YouTube channel get out there to more potential viewers who might be looking for the information I have to offer. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're going to be talking about solder wire. And this is your typical solder wire that's a little thicker. And this is the solder wire that's a little thinner. And I'm just going to share with you some of the things that I have learned through trial and error when I'm soldering jewelry. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a brass stamping. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around so I can show you exactly what I'm going to be sharing with you. Okay, so here I have this little turtle. It's a brass stamping, which I'm going to make into a pendant. And the reason I'm going to solder this little guy is because he's very light in weight. And I want him to have, you know, some weight to him. So if it hangs on a necklace or on a bracelet, it'll have some weight to it and it'll hang really nice. Now, this is another brass stamping that I did that's a bumblebee, as you can see. And I just want you to see the back side of it. See how nice and smooth that is, even in the areas that are really small, like his antennas and his little feelers down here. Okay, but that's what I'm going to be sharing with you, is how to get this solder to work so it doesn't end up on the front of the brass stamping or the front of your piece. So the first thing we want to do is we want to use the thicker solder wire in the center of the turtle. I'm going to fill that in first, and I'm going to put some flux in the center, only in the center. I don't recommend putting it on his head or feet or tail at this point, because I want to have some control over how the solder flows into those tiny areas. So I'm only putting the flux in the center of his body, and I'm going to use the larger pieces that I've already pre-cut, and I'm just going to put that in the center of his shell here. And I'm going to use my blowtorch to melt that in. Now, on his feet and his head, I'm going to be using the thinner wire. Caught on fire just a little bit there. Okay, now here, it doesn't have quite, I think he's a little bit crooked here. Let me get him. Okay, there we go. All right, so he's not quite filled in yet. There's still a little bit of solder that I can put in there and just kind of fill him up, so it's even all the way around. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some flux and put it on his head. He's got a little bit of solder there already, but that's okay. Needs a little bit more. Then I'm going to put a little bit on his tail and his feet. Now, you're probably thinking, why would I not just apply this center and let the flux float into the feet and tail? I have done that in the past, and I'm here to tell you all, inevitably it flows too hard, too aggressive, and solder ends up on the front side. That's just been my experience. So that's why I do it this way, to avoid that happening. So now I'm going to use my thinner wire to fill in his little feet and head. And I've already have a pre-cut piece right here. And so what I do is I take my blowtorch and I heat up the area that I'm working in. I just heat it up really good and just touch that area. All I'm doing, that's all I'm doing. I'm just barely touching it. And you know what? This works no matter how small of an area that you're working in. So here's his little foot. So I'm just going to take that. And there we go. Maybe want to go over it. Now, for me, this has been a very successful way to solder pieces and have it not drip to the front. I have tried everything. And I'm not saying that I don't still get a little few accidents every now and then, because I do. However, not very often since I've been doing it like this. Now, I'm going to show you a piece that this technique, when you're working with the thick wire is for, well, in my opinion, the thick wire is for like bigger areas to work in. And then the thinner wire is for smaller areas, and also for areas where you want to be able to control the amount of solder that you use. Like my experience has been, for example, when I'm working on an agate slice and I'm using copper tape. So say I've got this agate slice right here, okay? And I want to solder around this slice. As you can see, I've already done that. So I put the copper tape on here, and then I apply my flux all around, and then I apply my solder. Okay, now for me, when I have used the thicker wire to do something like this slice, I end up having too much solder in some areas and not enough in other areas. And it was very frustrating to me. And I'm like, I want to get it even and smooth. Now, on here, you can see how nice and even this is. That's because instead of using the thicker wire, I use the thinner wire. Now, thin wire and thick wire, or soldering wire, are both important in our workroom because one does one thing and one does another as far as the application and the way things turn out. As you can see, it's not thicker or heavier in any one area. It's pretty darn even. Well, I use the thin wire, soldering wire, all the way around, and that's why this turned out the way it did. And that, like I said, has been just trial and error. Now, this is a metal stamping cross that I did, that I sell on my Etsy store, that I did a brass aging on, and then I added the Swarovski crystals. And as you can see how thin that is, it's really thin. The stamping itself is very lightweight. Well, I want to be able to sell it as a pendant, and I want it to have some weight so it hangs beautifully on the chain or whatever they choose to hang it on, a piece of leather or whatever, ribbon or whatever. Okay, so what I did on the back side is I used the thin solder wire on the back so I could control how much solder was on the back of this cross. I did not want it to end up on the front. So I just used the thin wire on the back. And also right in this area here, I could have easily soldered this area if I wanted to with the thin wire. And here is my bumblebee that I did earlier, and you could see he doesn't have any solder on the front. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to do something like this. The solder ends up on the front, and then I can't use it as a pendant. I have to do a patina on it, which sometimes I don't always want to do that. So on this little guy, in the center, I used the thicker soldering wire, just like I did on the turtle. I went ahead and did the thicker solder wire in the wings and in the center of the body and his head. And then when I got done, I went ahead and fluxed, you know, his little feet and his antennas, and where these little tiny areas here, I fluxed them, and then I used the thin wire. And as you can see, you know, it turned out really good. And there's nothing on the front. He looks just perfect. Okay, now I'm going to flip this little guy over and see how he looks. And voila, no solder on the front of his body. I am just so happy. So I'm glad that I could do this on a video and show you guys that it does work. So anyway, I hope that these little tips will help you in your soldering. I think it's applicable no matter what kind of, you know, piece that you're working on, especially if you're working on a piece where you have larger areas and then very tiny detailed areas. It just makes for a really nice finish on your on the project that you're working on, whether it's a big project or a small project. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and go, but if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments, any comments. And again, if you like this video, give it a like, because it does help other viewers to find me in case they're looking for the information I have to offer. And also, if you want to know when I upload a new video to my YouTube channel, if you would go ahead and hit the subscribe button, then you'll know right away when I pop one up on my channel. And thanks for listening. Thanks for stopping by. And we'll see you guys soon again. Bye-bye.